Israel Adesanya has to fight Alex Pereira next. Now, you may not understand or agree with me straight away, but just hear me out. I think DC mentioned this on an interview or online, and I completely agree with what he's saying. I think it's a great take. Pereira is an odd champion, to say the least. I think we all know it. He is described as a one-trick pony by some. I think he's a good fighter. I think he's a great fighter, a great striker. We've seen it in his kickboxing. We've seen it against Israel Adesanya. He has that power punch that you need. He's technically good. Maybe Izzy's a bit technically better, but he got the best of him 3 times, so he's got to be a good fighter. But when we look at his wrestling, would we say it's up to scratch? Is it at the UFC level? Probably not. And if we were to bet, let's say we were betting. I'm not a betting man, but let's say maybe some of you are. And you had, let's say, Costa versus Pereira, or a Whittaker versus Pereira. Who do you think would be the favourite? If you went on DraftKings or Bet365, who do you think would be the favourite in a fight like that? I'd say the person fighting Pereira, if it was a top 5 contender for me, would be the favourite. You know, a Costa, a Whittaker, they'd definitely be the favourite against a Pereira. And you might be asking me, how does that link to why Adesanya has to fight him next? Now, let's say he does fight. Let's pretend he's fighting Costa next. The risk of him losing is too high for Adesanya. This directly links to why Adesanya has to fight him next, in my eyes anyway. His level of wrestling against any top 5 contender isn't good enough, in my opinion, to beat them. If Pereira loses, let's say, fighting a Costa or a Whittaker, Adesanya might not have the opportunity to avenge his loss ever again. He needs to fight Pereira whilst he's champ to avenge his loss, get his belt back, and be back on top of his division. You imagine Pereira loses that fight against a Costa or a Whittaker, drops down a couple places in the rankings. Adesanya might not get the opportunity again to fight him. Why would he not fight for the belt next? I don't believe that he'd fight a Pereira who's ranked 3rd or ranked 4th in the division after losing. If he had the choice between fighting to get the belt back or fighting Pereira, I think he'd take the belt. And if he wins the belt and Pereira keeps getting out wrestled in fights, will he ever fight Pereira again? Who knows? And for me, that's the reason why Adesanya definitely has to fight Pereira next.